Okay, rolling.
Oh,
Hey, perfect. See?
yeah,
Perfect
it'll be
timing.
fine, it'll be fine.
Thank you.
Speak loudly.
I feel important. Go on, Steve.
You're important to us.
Okay, I'm calling the regular meeting of the Cornwall Planning and Zoning Commission to order at 7:04 p.m. The members who are present are myself, Anna Tamel, Chair, Michelle Shipp, who is an alternate and will be seated tonight for regular member Christine Gray. We have Janelle Mullen, our land use consultant. We have Stephen Sicardi, regular member, Phil West, regular member, and James Laporta, regular member, as well as CEO Karen Nelson. The first order of business are the zoning applications that have been listed at the end of the agenda, and they are just for our information. We do not have to act on any of those. The next item is to approve the minutes of the September 26th special meeting. It was a record short meeting. I think it lasted 4 minutes.
I move to approve those minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
New applications, see under zoning permits.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to talk about these new zoning permits, Karen?
I just want to say that zoning permit 1190 for the West Cornwall Development Corporation is the last zoning modification, site plan modification to change the use again to this 2-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor, 1-bedroom apartment 1st floor, and a retail store on the 1st floor. And they're already started work.
And this is for the pink house.
Pink.
Is there a site plan associated?
The site plan hasn't changed, it's just the interior.
We already approved the site plan.
Understood.
Yeah.
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 If we could just revisit a copy of the site plan, if you have it digitally, it'd be helpful.
I didn't bring it with me, no. I would have to, because it was the last one.
Isn't this basically what we approved in the site plan? I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I-
changed the number of bedrooms.
I just want to look at the parking again.
Right. Is there enough parking for?
It's been 2 years since we first looked at that site plan, so if we can all just get the site plan again, I think it would be beneficial.
What was,
Actually, we just looked at the site plan earlier this spring when he brought,
Yeah, we talked about signage all the time.
because a question about the survey boundaries on the front.
what was the plan? You said they changed the numbers,
They
so,
change actually how the configuration of the apartments are. When they were, they changed the interior space to have one bigger apartment, the top smaller one, and a retail space.
were they going to have 2 apartments upstairs, 2 1-bedrooms?
I think so, something like that, yeah.
So now they're only having 1 bedroom, 1
Big bedroom on the other.
2-bedroom apartment. So 1 apartment upstairs and 1 apartment downstairs and a retail.
Yeah.
Whereas before they were gonna have 2 apartments upstairs,
Or
with
it was.
nothing on the bottom for apartment?
They modified it 3 months ago. I'd have to go back and look
Okay.
at what it was. But I thought
I'm
I
just
would bring
wondering-
it to you because I made them go through Torrington Area Health again to change.
Did they add, like, the total number of bedrooms?
No, yeah, I think they added 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we can all just see that site plan again, it might be helpful, just digitally.
Although if, because we don't do parking on bedrooms, we do it on, based on the number of
I think
apartments.
if
If
we
it
did-
was two apartments upstairs original, then it'd be the same number of apartments.
I think we should all just be able to
Yeah.
see the site plan.
That's fine. I mean, Karen felt comfortable approving this permit. I'm not going to question that, but it would be good if you would send a site plan digitally
Yep.
to all of us again.
I will have.
And the
Yes.
other permanent that was approved that you wanted to draw our attention to, you and I talked about this, just the trail signage for the Furnace Brook Preserve. And that's pretty straightforward.
Yes, they have been very courteous about asking, bringing applications in for signs for all of the.
Right. I think you just wanted us to be aware of it.
I think it's already done.
Probably.
Yeah. It's done.
It's, and just so you know, they're also making some minor modifications to the Little Village site plan to address the pavement and the sidewalks. So the Park and Rec department wasn't aware of the plans. So Karen Dublin is meeting with you and Jen.
We're in contact, so we'll touch base with them.
I think at any opportunity for the commission to review any site plan, I think is just helpful, just for everyone also to get used to looking at site plans.
Correct, I agree.
So that then you can also see it, because Footfield is such a visible site. You can drive by, and then just for your own site plan reading, understanding, just for everyone to have access.
This was the site plan that last.
Understood, but I think just for the commission to be able to revisit them will be helpful.
Okay, just so you know, this permit is just for the trail signage. Yeah.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Right. Did you want to keep that?
Are we ready to move on? Any other questions? Pending applications, we have SP 257, the Ridgeway application. We have had no further information or changes to the original application, so we're just sitting tight. I'm going to ask Karen to be sure to stay in touch with the applicants so that they can, you can sort of have a feel for whether they're making progress with their plans and whether or not they're going to get them all finished by the time that special meeting has been set.
Okay, because you're going to be discussing that also, what you would like to see under other business property.
Pardon me?
You're going to be discussing timing under what you would like to see, correct, under other business?
Yeah, but that's not pertinent right now.
Okay.
Okay, Karen, we need your staff report.
I don't have too much to report because I was out of commission for a couple of weeks, but if you look at the zoning limits that I added to the tail end of the agenda, there is a lot of interest in many lots in the town of Cornwall. Unfortunately, they're all ones that are difficult, and there's probably 2 small subdivisions in the works. But otherwise, it's been a lot of emergency stuff for wetlands based on the storm damage, so that's been taking up a lot of my time.
It's quite a lot of applications.
Well, I'm catching up, because a lot of them are from August.
Okay. No enforcement actions?
No enforcement actions at this point.
Correspondence and communications? Anything?
I only got one letter that is going to sit on my desk or in my email until you make the decision as to when it can go up.
Okay.
And the writer is aware of that and has absolutely no issues with it.
Okay. We might as well move right on to that other business then. I wanted to discuss again the standard operating procedure that we all agreed to at another meeting. I think what we agreed was that for any given public hearing, we would accept correspondence up until the end of Karen's business day on Thursday before a Tuesday meeting.
Right.
The reason being that there needs to be time for Karen to actually download the letter and forward it to us, and we need to have time to read it in preparation for a meeting. The previous public hearing had a lot of commentary, and a lot of that commentary came in after the deadline. People were very resistant to our attempts to communicate with them that we had a deadline. It created a lot of ill will, and Karen and I made the decision that for the sake of the public and the appearance of fairness, that we would accept all the letters that had come in, even after the deadline. Then, at the public hearing, you may recall, I spoke up and I talked about the deadline and that we were going to be enforcing it in the future. After that meeting, I believe you received yet another piece of correspondence, which
Is,
currently has no particular bearing on anything, since we don't know whether we're getting a new application or they're going to proceed with the old application. So I'm open to any suggestions that commissioners might have about what we do about that particular letter. But before I do that, I'd like to discuss this standard operating procedure and how you all see it, what you think about it.
Well, first, I think when I was talking to the deadline, because I feel like that night when we talked it and we sussed through it, it wasn't the Thursday before the meeting, but it was the Tuesday. So that by the end of her business day Tuesday, it was submitted, so she had Thursday to post it. Because we said if it came in Thursday at the end of the day, she wouldn't have time to give it out to us. So I remember us backtracking and actually setting it that correspondence was due 1 week prior to our meeting.
That makes sense.
Because otherwise Karen would be incumbent to come in on her non-duty time
no,
to put that
Thursday noon, the last meeting, Thursday
up.
noon.
Noon, okay.
I waited till 12 o'clock, and the last letter that came in, I put it through the scanner, PDF, and then sent them off, because they have to, also, there is the understanding that they are someplace up on the website. There's the other issue, someplace up on the website for people to review.
I think you're right though, Michelle, in terms of, that was a meeting, Anna, that you weren't here for, and
Oh,
I
okay.
chaired.
Okay.
And that was what we decided, especially for that application, because we wouldn't have had time, so we publicly made that
You did make that
announcement
decision, yeah.
at that meeting. But we can tweak it further, obviously, according to what we all decided is the best course of
I
action.
understood it was Thursday, so.
Well, Karen, Karen is willing. Karen is willing to do it, and we do have, we appear to have a lot of people who come in at the last minute. What happens, of course, is everybody in town is talking and stimulating each other. And as the deadline approaches, there's a flurry of letter writing at the end. I think maybe we could, I would prefer, for the sake of the community's perception of our receptiveness to their comments, that we make it Thursday, not a week before. And we try it for a while. We can all, if we're setting up a standard operating procedure, that's ours to change whenever we want to.
But I think it shouldn't be any later than that, because as a
Absolutely.
commission, we are obligated to make sure that we get the information.
Absolutely.
And Thursday
Often
noon.
Tuesday.
Thursday at noon, if it
Tuesday
comes
at
in,
noon, those emails I never see till 10 minutes before.
Right.
Right?
12:05, too late.
Yeah, let's.
They're all date stamped, so,
So,
yeah?
okay, I think it should just be clear, like, somehow in our, on the website, in the description of park planning and zoning, that it said, somewhere in there that it just says correspondence applicable to a planning and zoning meeting needs to be received before
Right.
Thursday meeting.
Here's what we've always done before. We've had on every agenda a statement that we welcome correspondence. And I would like to, from now on, add to that statement the deadline information,
Right.
so that people will be continually reminded.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
As well as on our website. And I think that if maybe there could be something for, if something comes in after the deadline, that there's an email generated, thank you, but this is after the deadline. If you'd like it to be part of a record, then please attend the meeting.
Right. Or we'll put it on the next one.
Or, yeah, that's.
Or put it at the next meetings.
Yeah, and maybe to not create any more work for Karen, that's the understood, because I would not expect her to put an out-of-office reminder every Thursday at noon when she's leaving the office, but it's just, if you miss that Thursday deadline of noon, just understand, it's a public hearing, it's a public proceeding. The written comments are something that get submitted to the commission. The town has no obligation to put that up on a website. Now that the COVID emergency requirements have been lifted, there's no legal obligation for the town to put that on the website. It's out of courtesy of transparency that the town of Cornwall has chosen to go above and beyond with scanning and putting these items up on the website. But it's, again, no guarantee if you miss the deadline that that'll be there. And to James's point, you're all volunteer commissioners, everyone works a full-time job. You read the correspondence when you receive it, but to best prepare for the meeting, if you miss the deadline, attend the meeting and paraphrase your comments. That's the expectation.
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm clear that this is for any meeting that we're having,
All-
not just
any-
public hearings.
Any,
All in-
Not just
All
public
written
hearings.
comments.
all
Actually,
written
it's
comments.
not just for public hearings, it
Yeah.
should be for any.
Correct, any
correspondence
meeting,
whatsoever.
any
Right.
correspondence for any meeting.
Correct.
And then,
And the commission's under no obligation if you're not having a public hearing, and it's just correspondence to respond to correspondence.
Right,
It's just,
it's usually noted, which is sent to us,
Yeah,
and then
it's put on the
it's
record.
noted on the record that we've
Right.
received that correspondence.
And there also needs to be the clarification that correspondence put on the town clerk's desk with the expectation that the town clerk will put it up on the website.
No.
Or correspondence put in a chat room on the town,
no, that's,
whatever,
Well-
somehow shifts its way over to planning and zoning.
Yeah, I mean, we
We have
covered
to-
that during home business.
We have to be clear that town news is not,
No.
and that's causing confusion too because of the.
I might try to get an article in the Chronicle about this, these different features. I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, if even just the word choice on the website could just be formal communication, so that it's understood that that's a part of the official record, something to that effect.
We have minutes, you're supposed to find us under a town commission, minutes and agendas, that's where we're supposed to be, and nobody's going to that page. That
Well,
is
It's pretty
part of the
straightforward.
At the, well,
You might consider.
you weren't
that.
at the public
Sure.
hearing, Karen, but I asked the audience, and there were easily, I don't know, 100 people in the audience, 60, something like that. I asked them, raise your hands if you know how to get to the webpage, how to navigate to the webpage, to the minutes and agendas, and most of them raised their hand.
Oh, good.
yeah,
I'm pleased to hear
just
that.
type in planning, so.
Yeah, there's a search
shows
term,
up.
the search engine works quite well.
So they must be sent to Karen, which, and the sidebar to that is that any letters sent to individual commissioners.
Just, they're null and void, like, we're not,
Right.
it's not, that is not a formal channel of communication, end of.
Does the commissioner have any obligation to respond to the letter writer and say, if you want this to be a formal piece of correspondence, you have to address it to the land, please send it to the land use
They
office?
can at their own free will, but that's no obligation of them
Okay.
as an individual. Like,
Okay.
we are not, who knows how often each individual as a volunteer commissioner is checking their email and providing that response, and that's not their responsibility. The formal channel is landuse@cornwallct.gov, end of.
Mhm. Okay. You are going to make it very difficult for us to pull all our spoiled citizens back from the edge.
I'm with you,
Manage
Gina.
you gotta manage expectations.
It's like teaching kindergarten. You just got the basic skills, you gotta do it, that's the way it is.
Okay, all right. So I would like this in the form of a motion that our this will be our standard operating procedure.
So we're gonna put it on the, you want it on the agenda? What is it?
I would like to hear a motion saying
I
that,
move that we adopt a formal SOP of accepting formal communications at the land use website or physical mail that's only received by Thursday noon of the week before a meeting. And everything after that will be postponed, will be put until the next meeting.
Or they
That
have
cover
to
everything?
come in.
Or they have to come to say it in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got something close to that, Karen?
Yeah, I think that's good enough. And who seconded?
James?
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And just for the record, that's landuse@cornwallct.org.
Go.
Gov.
Landuse@cornwallct.gov.
Right. Thanks for stating it.
I couldn't remember. it all.
That should
That's
probably be a motion. Okay. Then, the next topic under other business is an annual report, and this is something that Karen and I do. It goes into the First Selectman's office, and as you know, we have a beautiful glossy annual report every year. Basically, Karen summarizes what our past year has been all about, and it should be easy this year because it was mostly about the reformat, right?
The arduous 2-year-plus task with the help of a great town planner,
Yeah.
Janelle Mullen, whose
Thanks,
name is
Jerry.
going in there.
Oh, yeah, of course it is.
Please.
Okay, next we're going to go to the commission member training statutory requirements. It was quite a shock to me to be reading in Attorney Ziska's book that we all have a copy of. It's on page 19, but I don't see it. I don't see that Karen copied that. Or she did at the very end. The salient point is that we commissioners have until March 1st of 2024 to complete our 4 credits, which is basically 4 hours. I think this is on the honor. I am not keeping track
I mean,
of your training hours.
there's nowhere to turn in our CEU credits.
Pardon me?
There's no place to turn our continuing
No,
education.
no, but
credits.
I mean, before 2024, I think you need to let Karen and I know whether you have made your credits and just a brief description of how you got them. I have attached some upcoming training that should help everybody who doesn't have any training to complete those 4 hours. This, I'm pretty sure, and Janelle can correct me if I'm wrong, that this new statute has arisen out of the many lawsuits that have resulted from volunteer commissioners not understanding the land use laws and how they're supposed to behave. So it seems reasonable to me. We've all been around this commission for quite a while. We've learned a lot, haven't we, guys?
More than anyone has started.
So I will send this around by email again to everyone and ask you all to, before March, that March deadline, to let us know if you've completed your hours. And then my understanding, Janelle will correct me if I'm wrong, that when a new commissioner comes on board, they have to do 4 hours. But our training, once we have our 4 hours, is done. Yes?
I need to check with OPM. I do believe it's continued education, so it is ongoing.
Oh.
Especially provided that statutes are constantly being updated.
Yeah.
So we do need to stay on top of it. I believe from your initial 4 hours of training with the first year, it's then 2 every year thereafter. This has been adopted since the publication of Ziska's book.
Okay.
I plan to reach out to OPM for many reasons. One, to ask about the honor system, how we're reporting, if, like, what their expectation is, because the book alludes to the commissioner would not have the right to vote. And I really would question that with OPM if they would be taking away quorums from commissions based on this training. So I'll reach out to OPM.
Just so everybody knows, Office of Policy and Management.
Martin Heft is a really good contact. Just to see also if there's alternative trainings. Oftentimes you'll see the trainings that get offered are across the state, something many of us will not commit to on a Saturday. And one coming up is at the end of the month in Haddam, and that would be the 4-hour training, but that's quite a commitment for any of us to drive across the state, spend our entire Saturday.
And that's the
that.
Household Hazardous Waste Day.
And that's a very important household hazardous waste day. So I will certainly be speaking to Martin Heft to see if we can also read this book and send hours that way, and or if we were to invite someone such as Mike Ziska to come and train us for an hour or two, if that would also count. So we can look at more tailored continuing education that would really work with our commission and also be of interest for this particular commission.
I noticed, I'm sorry, I noticed on here they're splitting out the general commissioner training versus fair and affordable housing training. Is that supposed to be split out in our training as well for any reason, or?
Well, the total training has to include an hour
1 hour.
of
1 hour
fair and
of fair
affordable housing.
Yeah.
training.
And
Now,
both of these are Zooms.
2 are Zooms, one's in person. The Zoom meetings are 1.5 hours.
Right, so you still need an hour after those two.
If you haven't done anything, if you didn't go to any of those Connecticut
So
bar.
I would still need another hour.
Okay.
And bear in mind that Connecticut bar, I mean, they send you
A certificate.
a certificate of the minutes that you were on that Zoom.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty hefty training, and it's pretty valuable, even if you just tune in for the housing one. So if you have concerns about your training, by all means, let Karen know, because there's trainings out there. And I'm sure we can pull something together. I was thinking of reaching out to Attorney Ziska to ask if he would come to the area to do something very specific for all of us. Because, I mean, he's delightful to listen to, and he's such a good resource, so it might really help us. And if we invite him for an hour, 2 hours in the evening, that could knock off a lot of hours pretty quickly.
You and I had talked about inviting other Northwest Corner zoning commissions to attend too. I presume that Attorney Ziska has an honorarium or a fee for trainings like that. So it would be a lot more economically feasible if we joined forces with other.
Can we do a Northwest Cog thing, something like that?
Pardon me?
Can we do
Well, you know, the Northwest Cog is still sort of in disarray. I did attend briefly the last 5th Thursday. There were terrible technical difficulties, and the speaker also wasn't easy to listen to, and I wound up just not staying for the whole thing. They sent me a certificate for 1.5 hours of credit anyway, just for signing up. So there's a thought.
Do those 5th Thursdays count towards the?
Oh, sure they would, yeah.
Just check.
Yeah, 5th Thursdays would, but I think they need to do some work to
Make it
sort things out.
tolerable.
Yeah, and then the problem also is that the speaker, the person in charge of training at Yukon Clear, Bruce Hyde, whom he was an incredibly good speaker and charming. And quite a few of us went to his, Ben, my son Ben, when he was a commissioner, went to one of his trainings. The new person doesn't even come close.
My thought too is when I reach out to Martin Heft at OPM to ask about the reading that we have all been doing on our own, just because we all have Ziska's book, if we can somehow formalize what we're reading
I think that's a
and have
great
that count
idea.
towards hours.
We could have like a book club.
Exactly.
We could throw together a pre and post test if that's necessary.
We could throw.
Or just pull it together and have a discussion group. on it.
Yeah, do something so that we are making these hours valuable. I think the value of the hour is really going to matter. If it's just checking a box, what's the point?
Yes, I have a look.
Yeah.
It's very interesting with the new DEEP and wetlands training, that it's online and it's tests, and I think I have 4 commission members that have completed it. And I know one that I think he spent between 20 and 40 hours because he's going back and reviewing things. And you can get online and then you can test yourself.
Well, Yukon Clear has always had video land use training. And in the past, when we had a new member come on board, like Bruce and Will and Christine, I asked them all to watch the basic training videos. They need to develop a mechanism for giving people credit for doing that. So it's a little, I think things are going to get better and better. It's going to get better organized. Things will be clear. Anytime we get a new law,
Exactly.
it seems we need some time for everything to settle out.
But quickly, Janelle, if there was the chance that if you want to combine any of the towns, I think Kent would be more than willing to come, and maybe in Salisbury.
Oh, sure.
I'd actually bet Sharon would too.
Oh, sure. And North Canaan.
All of them.
All of them, everybody. And all the people you work for, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll reach out.
Anything more on that? By the way, I will just say that I think training is essential.
It's important.
And it takes a while, doesn't it, to get the hang of all the rules and.
That's why I'm like, read your site plans, look at your site plans, because that's a skill.
Yeah, one of these Zoom trainings is on how to read a site
It's
plan.
phenomenal.
And I think I'm going to take that one because I'm really bad at it. Okay, now we're going to move on to the planning workshop. In your packet, you have Janelle's suggestion that you discussed on August 8th when I wasn't here for the new amendment. And I thought we could review it again, have a little discussion, and then maybe get around to setting it to public hearing. So first of all, everyone find it in your packet.
It should be right in that.
You there?
Yeah, I'm good.
That's not the one from this week. James, is there another agenda down there?
Here, I can give you mine out of the agenda because I printed a copy.
Here we go. Here we go.
One for you.
So let's, they're called accessory dwelling units now, that's the official language, not accessory apartments. Intent and purpose. I'm just going to read it out loud. The purpose of this regulation is to broaden the town's supply of dwelling units in all zones by allowing for accessory dwelling units, both attached and detached, by zoning permit. That's a major change from our old regulation. Do you recognize that, everybody? Because we used to require a special permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit, and now we're doing it by zoning permit. An accessory dwelling unit can be defined as a separate dwelling unit that is A, located on the same lot as a principal dwelling unit of greater square footage, B, has cooking facilities, and C, complies with, or is otherwise exempt, from any applicable building code, fire code, and health and safety regulations. The provisions of this section are intended to enable diverse housing options across all income levels in various locations throughout the town of Cornwall. Anybody think they can improve on that? Okay, next, the approval process. An accessory apartment in a single-family dwelling, i.e. attached, shall require a zoning permit. An accessory apartment to be located in an accessory structure, i.e. detached, shall also require a zoning permit. Any additional accessory dwelling units, aside from a first, on a single lot shall require a special permit. So here's the second major change. We're allowing 2 ADUs on one property. The second one must be by special permit. Everybody got that part? The conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multi-family dwelling unit shall require a special permit. And then Janelle just excels at making tables that make things clear, and there's a table below.
I have a question on the detached in an accessory structure. It could be its own standalone ADU or part of an existing structure, right? Either way.
People could build an accessory structure as long as, you know, they have meet all the other requirements that we have for
But it doesn't have to
building.
be a barn that
No,
they put an
no.
apartment in. It could just be an apartment building. Not apartment building, but a
Right,
dwelling unit.
right.
Okay.
Janelle, in your table, that's so nice, it probably should be special permit, not special unit,
Oh, thank you. Look at you.
×2.
Times 2. Like that. Thank you. Nice
Good catch,
Great
good catch. All right, and then specific provisions. So the first paragraph is, of course, it has to be in compliance with other codes and requirements, like especially for area health. The commission, here's an important sentence, the commission may require additional information to indicate compliance with other applicable requirements, such as building and or fire code. And then there's a parking section, and this parking section is also different from our current regulation because it requires only 1 for each accessory apartment, as stipulated in the new statute that Connecticut passed. So we're now going to be in compliance with that statute. Site plan, plot plan shall be required to show compliance. The plan shall be adequate to show compliance with setbacks, adequate and safe site and unit access, e.g. compliance with driveway requirements, as well as the required off-street parking. The ZEO and/or Planning and Zoning Commission reserve the right to ask for additional information, such as an A2 quality survey to determine compliance. And we all know that as commissioners, we can ask for additional information in order to be clear.
And just to be sure, that like the compliance with other codes and requirements covers things like inland wetlands and anything else like that, I would assume. Okay.
Zoning permit filed on land records. Prior to the commencement of construction and/or the establishment of use, the owner shall file a copy of the zoning permit for an accessory dwelling unit on the town land records. So these accessory dwelling units, the permit goes with the land, not the applicant.
Right.
And once that special permit has been given, it's important that future owners have access to that information.
It's a zoning permit, not a special permit though.
Yes, any zoning permit,
Right.
any zoning permit or special permit. Do we need to say zoning permit and special permit, or just?
No.
Okay. The livable floor area of the apartment shall be no greater than 1,200 square feet and shall be less than the livable floor area of the primary dwelling unit. I guess this number we pulled sort of out of the air, at some point in our many discussions over the years about ADUs. It's a way of making sure that someone doesn't build themselves a 5,000 square foot accessory dwelling unit.
There's also been discussion about taking that out, as long as it's
Smaller.
less than the livable floor area of the primary dwelling unit.
That was, historically, there was a situation where a second home was built on the same property that was, a 2,500 square foot home. And then there was I don't know if there was a public concern, but the commission was concerned that that wasn't the intent that we were trying to promote, basically allowing for 2 full-size houses per lot. So they wanted to make sure it's not just one smaller, but this is for an accessory dwelling unit. We're not trying to promote.
I will mention to all of you that I'm on the housing task force, and the task force has advocated for changing that number and giving an opportunity for the number to be bigger than 1,200. I think
On that, I have a question.
How come?
Follow down below, a special permit required for number 1. Looks like that is an option for us, right? That you could have bigger than 1,200 square feet with a special permit.
That's correct.
correct. So that was the answer to that question about giving people the option to build something bigger. It would require a public hearing and all of the other information coming to us. So I think that would take care of that problem, don't you?
Yeah, because like if you have a 3,000 square foot house on the property, you could build a 2,000 square foot ADU with a special permit in here.
Right.
Right.
You're so big.
I'm just making sure, I'm just clarifying
That's
that,
what we agreed to.
that that's what that says. I think
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, and while I'm on that, and we go to number 2, I have another question on 2. Basically, we're allowing 2 ADUs per lot.
Mhm.
So my question is, person owns a piece of property that has multiple lots on it. So can they have 2 ADUs per lot?
Well, you
Multiple lots on it. They own multiple lots.
They own multiple
They might
lots.
be next to each other. but-
Right, but it's
Each lot is.
its own separate, so,
Doesn't matter
It
who
doesn't
owns it.
matter, the same owner or different.
And where they're located.
okay.
The lot.
There are, we have a small number of, owners who have multiple lots in town with buildings on them. But I don't think it's the land, remember that? It's not the
Right.
owner, it's the
Each
land.
lot is
Right.
its own separate parcel.
Right.
Okay.
Conversation.
I'm good with that, I just want to clarify that's what we mean.
Right.
That's a good question.
And then adaptive reuse, conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multi-family dwelling shall require a special permit and satisfy the general standards. That's all straightforward. Now, and that's what was discussed at the August 8th meeting, and you were all okay with it. I have one other thing that I want to bring up. And this was also brought forward by the task force, which was that could we build in language that would bar the use of an accessory dwelling unit as an Airbnb. And Jocelyn Eyre is on the task force. She stated that there are several towns that have done just that. And I've given each of you, I believe, a copy of the Burlington zoning regulations, which they recently amended. And they have a very brief sentence, which reads as follows: no short-term rentals, i.e. Airbnb, VRBO, or similar construct, are permitted in an accessory structure. I think the wording would have to be an accessory dwelling unit. I called the ZEO of Burlington today to ask what kind of reaction the citizens of Burlington had to that new provision, and he said absolutely nothing. Nobody has brought it up or complained. So I'd like you to consider adding that, because you may or may not be aware that there's a consensus among planners that accessory dwelling, that homes and accessory dwelling units that are used for Airbnb remove an opportunity for a family to live in town. Did I word that wrong?
I get you, but can I
Wait,
just,
let Janelle have an objection to my use of language, so I want to hear what she has to say.
Some planners have different notions on various things. I would be very careful if the town of Cornwall were to adopt prohibiting short-term rentals by making sure that you have enforcement mechanisms for that regulation and you're defining short-term rentals clearly. Because what's short-term versus long-term?
Yeah.
And are you ready to enforce that? If it's a rule that can't be enforced, it might as well not be on the books. And
Well, most of the rules can't be enforced.
so can I play a little devil's advocate to this?
We will leave that for certain people that don't follow the rules.
Okay. So I want to play a little devil's advocate to this, because I think that because of the nature of some of our houses in town and the way, and the people that are living there, that some of those houses wouldn't be affordable to the people that are living in them if they didn't have the income from an Airbnb.
Yeah.
and
That's a
accessory
significant concern.
yeah, no, that's where I didn't take, but I do take umbrage about speaking for planners in general. I just stayed at an Airbnb over the weekend. I find it beneficial for various reasons. It's a matter of the commission having a greater discussion on if regulation is beneficial or not. It's a very loaded discussion with a lot of different aspects to it. And to Phil's point, I've seen many people be able to actually maintain their housing through the Airbnb, and we are aware of a few that exist in town that exist as accessory dwelling units with long-term people living in a primary dwelling unit.
Yeah.
So,
And the way they support their houses.
That was going to be my question. I got a couple questions. So, one, I can think of someone already that I know has an ADU that is Airbnb. So, would this be grandfathered in, that if you already had it, you're allowed to keep it? But that's another enforcement issue. But then to the other side, I get what Phil's saying about that. But the flip side of that is, instead of renting it on a short-term basis, you would get that rental income, but it would be a long-term basis.
It wouldn't be the same rental.
it wouldn't be the same.
It wouldn't be the same, but we wouldn't be taking all their income away, as limiting it. I mean, it's more difficult, but I think that getting someone in there is possible. There's plenty of people looking for housing in Cornwall, and if you could get someone in on a long-term basis, it would be less, it would lessen the burden on our housing here.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, if you took an ADU off the Airbnb market, and Phil's saying they can't afford to keep their housing if they don't have that income. If you put someone in there on a long-term rental, they are going to get long-term rental income, and it does stabilize our housing. So it may not be the same price you can charge for an Airbnb, but I think if you add up rent over a long-term basis, it will work out, because the number of times they rent their Airbnb and it's vacant.
Well, there's more to that story.
There is.
You say you want to keep it open for the holidays for your children to come.
Yes,
Now you don't have that option anymore.
that is true.
So now where that person go? She's a single woman and she needs the income, like Bill says, but she doesn't want her children to still visit.
Right.
So you sort of tie her hands, or his hands.
Personally, I don't think we should touch the Airbnb stuff yet.
Well, I said
I think that wants a much bigger discussion.
And I think our regulations might handle it in some future thing, not just for ADUs, but in general. And that was the one that we had kind of punted down the road because we thought the state was going to do something about that.
Do not wait for the state to do anything, that's all I have to say. Or I do not wait for the state to do anything that's competent.
Well,
But also, like, from a I don't know, I think from a perspective of the town's liability, exposure and all that stuff, the less, I'm not sure if I'd be comfortable
Okay,
chewing that
that's
one off
fine.
right now.
I just want to point something out to you. Burlington, Avon, Simsbury, New Hartford are the burbs. It's really different when you live in New Hartford and everybody has their single-family residents that live on streets or whatever and do not are much more aware of their neighbors as opposed to
Yes, it's
some.
because their housing is denser from the get-go,
Yes.
and our housing is not very dense, so the Airbnb is not that terribly bothersome to the neighbors.
Yeah.
And we have never had any complaints.
I wonder if Burlington's, actually, if their regulation was verbatim, that they would allow an Airbnb in a house, but not in a separate.
That's what it sounds, that's, I
Right.
mean,
I
in
think
reading
they
this,
might be making
it
that
truly
distinction.
seems like it's just, don't create an accessory apartment for the sake of an Airbnb.
Right,
That's
the
what I'm
separate building
gleaning,
and then the.
that's what I gleaned from just this one-page excerpt that we've received, is that it's really very particular to accessory apartment. I do want to add that I think Airbnb and short-term rentals are a much bigger policy planning issue than we want to tackle with our accessory dwelling unit amendment.
Oh, gosh, no.
And I think that we might want to keep them separate and then attack Airbnbs and short-term rentals. And it might actually be something that we send a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen as an ordinance because of this pre-existing non-conforming use situation that we run in with any zoning amendment, because there are pre-existing Airbnbs that we know of in town. So if we ever want to tackle this, it might be a greater policy conversation to have with our Board of Selectmen and the Commission. Many towns have struggled tackling this for, especially lake towns, a lot of the Bantam Lake community and Lake Warmog, they've struggled with this for a long time, and it really needs to be like a townwide effort to come up with a proper regulation and enforcement mechanism to address.
I'd also argue that when we get to this discussion, I think there's a conflict in our planning document, in our,
Oh, the
PCD
the town plan?
versus businesses, encouraging businesses and encouraging housing. And I think by taking the Airbnb option away, you might be discouraging business for some people.
point.
And even if you're encouraging houses, so we'd have to deal with that conflict.
Interesting.
That's a
Yeah,
good
I
point.
think it's a big,
The one other thing I'll tell you that the CEO of Burlington said to me, they did create a short-term rental regulation because, as he said, if it's not allowed, if it's not specifically mentioned in your zoning regulations, it's not permitted.
yeah.
So the Airbnbs that are being run in Cornwall today are all illegal because we don't have any provision in our regulations to allow it. And that's the way
Do we have
zoning
anything about
regulations
rentals?
are in this state.
Do we have anything about rentals at all? Long-term or short-term?
It's the state
It is
standard.
a house that is being used as a house. We should
Right.
never differentiate between what's being used by owner versus a renter. It's
Right.
used as a single-family house.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's illegal, but that would be just because we don't spell out a time frame at all.
Right.
Well,
But I wouldn't
that's,
want to go to court on it.
no, but I think it's worth thinking about because when we've taken our training about the
Permissive
zoning
use.
regulations in the state of Connecticut, this term, legal term permissive, that keeps coming up, and it doesn't mean, it means if you haven't made a specific arrangement to permit a certain land use, it can't be, you can't
Well, it's
do it.
still, as Janelle was saying, though, it's still residential use. It just happens to be in a very small time frame.
And it is an argument because many people argue, is it a residential use that has a weird commercial element to it, or is it a bona fide residential use? And that's where,
Or is it a home business?
exactly, and that's to James's point where like, it's murky.
Yeah.
And until we define it and proactively make statements in our permissible zoning regulations, will we know how to properly address it?
Okay.
And we've kicked the can, and it seems like we will continue to
Kick it
kick
again.
the can
Yeah,
in this town, based on this discussion.
that's fine. I just will be able to tell the housing task force that we had a discussion and we elected to kick the can down the road.
I kind of like the idea of bringing this up for public hearing and get these adopted.
Okay.
The ADU ones.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think
With the,
I think-
With the two word changes.
the two word changes.
Yes, that's what.
Yes, I actually want to add one more word change, just to make it super clear. So on page 2, number 5, it says the livable floor area of the apartment shall be no greater than 12,000 square feet.
1,200.
I want to 1,200, I want to put in parentheses unless approved by special permit, so it
Yes.
doesn't conflict with what you see below.
Sure.
That would be
Makes
my
sense.
only change. And then my other
You can
consideration.
even see section D.
Yeah, my other thought would also be just to Phil's earlier point, such as building and or fire code, why not throw in a friendly mention of inland wetlands to make people aware
Yeah,
of those?
I agree.
Especially for it says,
Yeah.
detached.
Exactly, so why not throw that in there? Just the more detail, the better, we're coming to find out. So with those 1, 2, and then the chart changes.
Yep.
Yep.
So we would need a motion to set that public hearing for Tuesday, November 7th, Election Day.
Well, one of the things,
No,
we
do
can't.
we have to, with the 35-day, is that whole thing to the COG where we have to send amendments for review?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
We can't make
I mean,
35-day.
So we'll have to have a special meeting in November for this.
Wait, why would it be November 7th?
Because we don't have 35 days
Well,
between.
that's the first
Let's count.
November of the month, so it will be the 14th.
It'd be
Or
the
say our
14th.
P and Z is the 14th.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I had it all wrong.
I was gonna say,
It's the
election
14th.
day is wetlands.
Yeah, we can't.
I would be here for wetlands,
Yeah,
not for
yes,
this.
that, so 14, we still need the 35 days.
Well,
Don't you?
but the
Don't you-
Northwest
don't you
Hills
think-
COG could probably be convinced to respond sooner.
Well, but that's by statute. Don't you think that kicking it into December might be easier and that we're not getting it
Yeah,
muddled
that's
up
right, yeah.
with the November 24th
Sure.
continued hearing?
December 12th?
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, got it.
I give up ever trying to do anything quickly.
I was gonna say, our P and Z meeting's day 35, if anybody.
Look out another.
Hang
We're
on.
not gonna get it done today, so.
Could we revisit this? Say this again, what you just
I'm
said.
pretty sure the P and Z, I counted, I think that's 35 days, our regular November meeting.
But that would mean that notice has to go out
You
today.
can't count.
Oh, you can't count,
You
okay.
can't count terminus days, sadly.
I started with it tomorrow, but
That's a big
it
one.
won't be in tomorrow's notice. So,
The,
No,
when it says.
I have to have the document, the complete document.
I'll have it for you tomorrow.
I won't be here tomorrow.
So with
Okay.
December,
All right, December then.
when it says it requires, it's understood that this still has to meet all our usual setbacks, needs to be located in the buildable area and all that stuff, right? But
Correct.
just because it says shall require a zoning permit, I think that's the only, but that's understood because that's
Part of it.
other language in our document at all. And to that point, Mel, did you happen to get a chance? I did not, to make sure that we still have our buildings, all buildings should be located in the buildable
I
area?
didn't look at the buildable area.
Can we look at that and have that as part of a, potentially, also have that as a public hearing in case we need to change wording? So the situation is that we, in our old version of the regulations, we had a fairly, what I consider to be an important part of our regulations, which is the buildings have to be located within the buildable area.
Right.
And we thought that that was covered in our new regulations, but we couldn't find that in our new regs.
I think it's impossible to not build within the buildable area.
Well, we better state that.
So,
It's not this.
I think it's
It says
inherent.
A because in our old regs, we actually spelled out what is required to be within the buildable area, and we said except for the septic and the well, we call out what.
Right.
And in this new one, in our definition of buildable area, which we thought it was in, I didn't find it, I couldn't seem to find it anywhere else, maybe it's under. So I just want to make sure that that wasn't a loophole, because that
The
would be
minimum
significant.
buildable area is on page 15 in the dimensional requirements.
Yeah.
And then buildable area is defined in definitions.
Yeah,
So-
but in that definition, it doesn't say anything about that the building needs to be located within it. It just says a buildable, each lot shall have a buildable area.
Well, it sort of implies that that's the area that you need to build in.
So, well,
It's built.
Karen has something to add to our discussion. Are you going to fix it?
I'd like to see the old
Just
regs,
say it.
because it was very clear in the old regs. And in
Yes,
this
I do.
version, it's very unclear, and if it isn't in there, I think we should, on the sooner side, make sure that that's not loophole.
James, out of the old regs, do you know where?
I think it's like the third page, something like, it's like right at the beginning when it says, each lot shall contain a buildable area or all buildings have, do you guys have buildable regs?
Yeah.
It's inherent that buildings go in the buildable area. One would never
But
be able to
but for the
build.
primary residence.
No.
What if you have a huge lot and you have 3 or 4?
You have to have another build, it has to be a buildable area.
Mhm.
That's inherent in the regulations, because you can't build in wetlands.
Right, but if you have a 10-acre lot that's completely flat, and has
You'll
all that,
have multiple buildable areas, or you'll have one very large buildable area.
that's where, I think that's the question is, a lot of people assume that you have to be in the primary buildable
With
area.
a minimal dimension of 100 feet per
minimum lot
side.
dimension requirements, is in this one?
I think it's very inherent.
Okay.
All
I mean, if we need to
structures,
spell it
it's
out,
right in,
all buildings must be in the
What
buildable
page is
area.
that?
20.
excuse me, Janelle.
Yeah,
Page 20, all structures and septic systems shall be located within a buildable area, except accessory structures with a footprint under 250 square feet, and wells which may be located outside of the buildable area.
so that's shed,
And
wells,
as
and
allowed by a
septic.
section 43, 44, and 46, very clear, specific, that we don't have in our regs now. So that would be a significant change, I think, and
I
we're
don't
not
think it's
spelling
a-
that out.
I don't believe it's a change at all. I
How-
think it's
we-
just the
Where do
way
we
that
say in
it's
our new regs
worded.
that it's under 250 square feet? Is the only,
I mean,
in other words, like,
All
like
right,
the
well,
current application that we have needs to be located within the buildable area, but that was not.
what you are talking about now is an amendment.
an amendment.
An amendment.
To
So
clarify
It
that.
will go on our amendment list.
That's
I'll put
fine.
it on our
That's fine.
amendment
We're
list.
good.
Okay.
You
But
said, all right?
it sounds like you'd like that expedited
Yeah,
because of a pending application. That's my understanding.
I think it should, no, because that's, I mean, it's water under the bridge, maybe, but it depends on when that application was done. However, I think it is very important, especially if we have potential future subdivisions or anything else. There's nothing in our regs now that say a house can't be located outside the buildable area. Or
It's
a
inherent
garage.
in the wording itself. Buildable area is where you
Lawyers.
can build.
Come on, and we got a 250 square foot.
Well, then you couldn't
one
put your
building
shed, you'd have to put your shed inside the buildable area. And I want to put my wood shed,
How about the well?
or the well would have to be in the buildable
How
area.
about the
What we
generator?
call out in the dimensional requirements that wells and septics don't have to be. That was a part of the
Yeah, that does say that.
regulation
That does.
update.
But
When
but he's right about the shed. I don't want to put a little shed, and it's just, you know, like with Home Depot, it's just,
What's the problem?
So it says the following exceptions to the setback requirements on the updated regulations, accessory structures with a footprint of less than 250 square feet, septic systems and wells are going to be the exceptions to the setback requirements.
Setback requirements.
So setback requirements are the buildable area. So it's not lost, it's just worded differently.
James, what do you mean by buildable area? Let's discuss the
So if you
definition.
go to page 15, you will read the schedule of dimensional requirements shall apply to all newly created lots and structures. And then you get to the schedule. The schedule has the minimum dimension of the buildable area rectangle. And then you get to each lot must contain at least one buildable area. And then you get to the exceptions, and it's very clear that the exceptions include a footprint of less than 250 square feet. There you have the shed, the septic systems, and the wells. And then if you get to definition, which was never in the previous regulations clearly, a buildable area is now defined as a rectangle area of a lot with a minimum dimension of 100 feet per side that contains no wetland soils, water bodies, water courses, utilities, access easements, rights of way, or any naturally occurring slope.
So where does it say that all the buildings need to be located within a buildable area?
Well, I think she's right, because
It's
it's the
inherent.
buildable area, that's where you can build.
Well, what happens if you have a barn that's not part of the residence?
They're exempt from wetlands because of the wetlands regulations in
So
agriculture.
then, do they need to be in a buildable area?
They are exempt from wetlands because of agriculture.
No, it's not an agricultural barn, it's a barn that I store my cars in.
Well, it doesn't matter if we're not wetlands, so we're talking about a buildable area. Does the barn need to be located in a buildable area, or can it be at a 45% slope?
So when you go back to buildable area, the definition, it says 25% slope. So it's comprehensive in that definition. I don't know what is not in the regulations now that was in the regulations before that is satisfying, other than just that straightforward statement, buildings must be within the buildable area.
That's the statement.
Buildings must be within the buildable area.
Yeah,
But then you get into the exceptions.
yeah.
Well, we do say that every lot must have a buildable area in these regulations, the new ones.
Well,
Each lot,
wait a minute, in other words, if I come to Karen and we have a potential building that's outside of the buildable area that's drawn on wetlands, and is it, are we gonna make the engineer show that the building is located within a buildable area?
That's a wetlands question. We're talking zoning regulations right now.
No, what's wetlands have to do with it?
Because you
You
said
said-
if an applicant were to come to Karen with a wetlands application.
That was
I'm
just a
sorry,
slip of the
barn-
tongue.
No, it's with the barn application. I'm gonna have an accessory structure.
It's over 250.
If it's a big barn, over 250 square feet, it needs to be in the buildable area.
And where does it say that in our regs?
It says,
The schedule of dimensional requirements shall apply to all newly created lots and structures. And then under here, the dimension, the buildable area is applicable. And then the exemptions are here. And then in definitions,
It's
it's
there,
also
it's just not
reiterated.
stated in
If
that
you'd like a
nice
very clear
language.
statement that says all buildings,
That's what
but
I would like.
then you also have to restate all buildings except for those less than 250 square feet to not conflict with what page 15 says.
Can't we put this verbatim?
It is
Or something?
essentially their verbatim, it's just
14.
organized differently.
so here's this current one, right here.
I-
Accessory structures less than
James, I'm
250.
actually comfortable that between Janelle and Karen, what you're worried about can't happen.
It's, because buildable area, it's the
That-
very essence
thing
of the
that brought-
definition.
thing
You
that
won't
brought it
build,
up Is my question at a recent public hearing, and you five folks said it's not necessary
they didn't show the buildable area on the application.
because,
It's
why
all,
not?
well, it's agricultural, numero uno, which makes it exempt from wetlands.
Wetlands isn't buildable area.
But the accessory building was going to be an agricultural use. It doesn't mean that it has to be devoid of wetlands. So that takes
why
out,
do you keep saying wetlands?
because the use was going to be agricultural. And buildable area has to be devoid of wetlands, which this barn was.
No, I don't care about the wetlands, it was a slope issue, that was my question. So,
Then you wanting it to be on a buildable area, I mean, that's a very valid point. having the engineer draw it out for you, like, that's valid. It's
Right.
very valid. And just showing that they have the minimal dimensional requirements there, and that it's devoid of slope, devoid of wetlands. In this particular instance, it was. They weren't required to be because of its agricultural activity. But it's,
In other words, I think in our previous regulations, it was very clear that all buildings over 250 square feet need to be located within the buildable area. Whether they're agriculture, whether they're a large dog kennel. And in the new regulations, just because you call it a buildable area, there's nothing in our regulations that say all buildings need to be located within the buildable area.
So,
It just says that the lot has a
if you
buildable area.
want to add the sentence to the definition that reads, all buildings greater than 250 square feet need to be
Must be
located,
located within a buildable area.
located within a buildable area.
Period. That's
yeah,
what I
and
would do.
listen, we're gonna be doing, we're gonna, after we pass ADU, we're gonna make another vote and move on to another amendment. No matter what we select to focus on next, we can always simultaneously throw that sentence.
That would be great.
Into
I would
the
feel
mix.
much more comfortable.
All right, James.
Yeah.
James has been on this commission for how many years now? 18?
100.
There's moments where
He deserves to be humored, okay? Make him more comfortable.
very much understood. There are moments where someone with a plot plan coming into Karen will not have their slopes, will not have their 2-foot contours, will not have their wetlands, and will not have their buildable area. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Yeah.
Because your average layperson isn't going to be able to know that it's bona fide in the buildable area.
But the commission should have, at least if it's a very questionable situation. So I've been on many site plans where all of a sudden they have a main residence, but they're talking about an accessory dwelling unit up the hill, and on an extremely steep slope. And I'm not sure if we have our dots, our T's crossed and everything, unless we specifically say that all buildings, not just the main residence,
Let's
needs to
specifically
be
say it.
located
Yeah.
within a buildable
And
area.
let's specifically say all buildings, including accessory buildings, greater than 250 square feet. And add that to definitions.
I think that would be just super clear moving forward for future commissions.
Do we have to have
Especially
a public
with the
hearing on
neighboring
that, Jane?
accessory dwelling units.
Yes, we have to have a
Yeah, we
public
do.
hearing on
It's
it.
a text amendment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
can I just ask, only because I saw it all.
thanks for giving me this.
No, it's important. We all talk through these things differently. It's a good discussion.
Just for my peace of mind, in the buildable area definition,
Yeah,
in the light gray, it says page 81.
yeah. Let's get that out of there.
That happens throughout the document?
Was printed before the final was put up online.
Okay.
Just for you to
Check it
know.
out.
Yeah, so just so you know, this is not the version that's online. This was printed prior to the effective
Just,
date. So this is,
just checking, because if somebody, I wasn't sure of that.
Right.
yeah.
Well, you just told me, so when it says page 81, there is no page 81.
So James, would you like us to add that to the public hearing in December? We could easily have 2 public hearings. Somebody could make a motion.
That would be great.
Sure.
Okay, a motion, please.
I move that we add the language just discussed about requiring all buildings to be located within a buildable area, including accessory structures over 250 square feet.
Be set for public hearing
December public hearing, December
12th.
12th.
Does that- Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm gonna sleep so well tonight.
By the way,
It's
did we
very
ever-
rare.
Wait, did we ever finish the motion to set the ADUs? Public hearings?
We sort of
I think
did.
we kind of, no.
Who seconded it?
Yeah,
I motioned it.
I move that the 80.
I'll second.
I did.
I'll second.
I don't have any names.
I made the motion because
They'll make the long motion.
I made a long motion.
Sure. Yeah, I'll second.
I was gonna say, I second Phil's long motion.
Did we vote?
No.
No.
Wait, so the
got
motion
that.
that you all said you did, Mr. West, second, somebody, to set the ADU for
Public hearing.
for public hearing.
December 12th.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you're gonna call the motion, and we're gonna hear all the voices again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sure.
Well, the motion's been made and
Just to be
seconded.
clear,
Any more
yeah.
discussion? I'm supposed to ask, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
Just for clarity and for my note-taking preparation, my understanding is the change is going to be made to Article 3 within definitions. So we're adding that sentence within definitions, not within page 15, which talks about dimensional requirements.
Sure.
Great, just want to be
As
clear.
long as it's in there somewhere.
Okay, as long as it's in there.
Yeah.
Great, perfect.
Very unusual for James to get
I love it.
hot and bothered about
Oh,
something.
He hasn't been sleeping.
So there are, as an aside, in my opinion, being on the commission is fine. There's just a few things that really kind of have the commission's power in terms of kind of development and what happens to the town long term. And our driveway grades is a critical one, and the buildable area is another one. And without those two things in place, I think our town, being as rugged as it is, potentially opens itself up for some development that might be problematic down the road, especially with heavier rains and things like that. So that's why I've been a stickler, and you'll notice that that's always the stuff that I'm bringing up as soon as driveway grades, buildable area, because I think it's important.
That was very well
It's
put.
important, yeah.
Yeah, very well put.
And do we address driveways soon? Is that a concern at this moment?
I think we have a pretty good,
We have a good
I mean, our
driveway.
grades I think are workable, and we should ask Keith, but, you know.
Yeah, I know it's just taken up a lot of Karen's time lately with with our recent rain events, and that's kind of why I asked a while ago. We're working
It's
on all of
very
this.
interesting because frankly, some of the engineering even 10 years ago is not addressing those lots that were approved 10 years ago, especially in West Cornwall. Is hydrology and everything is changing, and a lot of it's not up to date. You're lucky that you have, people looking, especially in West Cornwall, because some of the precautions are built into the Housatonic River document, and that's going on in wild and scenic. But what you're seeing with a lot of the flooding and whatever is really based on development, change in contours, change in hydrology, change in watersheds, and it's causing problems.
The commission may not be aware that when the Housatonic River Commission was first formed, I don't know how many, it was in the 70s, they developed a set of regulations governing what happened within the inner and also outer, or just the inner and outer quarter. And the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time decided to just absorb those regulations en masse. They are now in the process of revising their regulations, given the wild and scenic status. I suspect it will be a very long time, but we will be presented with those regulations and asked to either adopt them. I don't know whether we have a choice, what the circumstances are, but we're going to have to look at them very carefully anyway, and compare them to what we have in our own
I have to
regulations.
say, from living in a town with regulations for the wild and scenic river, the Housatonic River existing regulations far exceed what we have along the front.
That's because we had Tom McGowan, and we worked very hard on our Housatonic River overlay zone.
Erosive soils, slope, all of those things, understanding vegetation, whatever, is really what's needed when you're talking about this, especially for
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Well, that was a little backstory. Before the buildable area and the driveway grades were implemented in our regs, we had a bunch of subdivisions that happened, I think it was the early 80s. maybe weeks, somewhere in there. And they were lots that were made, and the commission at the time was like, holy smokes, can you imagine putting a house on this lot? And of course, they were subdivided because they legally could be. But that's why they realized, this is probably, we should make a buildable area, because it's kind of stupid to make a lot that you then can't develop. And now we're dealing with a lot of these lots that were made back then. The tornado came through and everything, they were kind of put on hold for a long time. And then, of course, the market boom with COVID, and now some of these lots are back and Karen's dealing with them. So that's why those lots wouldn't have been able to be made under today's regulations with the driveway regs in the buildable area.
That's also a nice, good historical point.
Yeah. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. And people coming in with approved lots, they're told that they have to completely re-engineer. Go, why? It was approved 30 years ago, so what was 3 years?
Yeah. Well, we've learned a lot since then.
We have learned a lot.
Okay. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Wow, that was quick.
So moved.
Second.
Got right to it.
Who made this?
Who made that? Who made?
Phil did.
You
I
made.
did.
Okay.
Wow,
Let's
just got right to it.
Second.
All right, adjourn. Number 8.
Anything else on your minds you wanted to bring up before we adjourn?
Good
Last
discussion.
chance.
Good discussion.
No?
Reminder not to discuss anything with the public hearing.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question about that? If they withdraw their current application or change it significantly, and they put in a new one or significantly
We
change one,
shouldn't.
does it
We can't be discussing
No,
this.
Oh, it's just a procedure, I just didn't know how it worked and what
Well,
changed.
We don't know
There's
what's.
a motion to adjourn, there's a motion called.
Okay.
There's a motion called, is it tabled?
Yeah.
Is it turned off?
No, we have to
We have to
vote
vote
to
on
adjourn.
We have an adjournment.
Actually, that's not associated with any specific application.
Okay, turn it off.
Well, we have to vote to adjourn.
I'd like a vote
Oh,
on a
right,
motion
right.
to adjourn.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And now we should be
And
talking.
now you shut it off.
Okay.